In this video, I'm going to be doing a review on the JP Group's classic line Super Beetle sending unit and the troubles that I have encountered with it. I'll install it here in a minute and we'll get on with it. Okay, I've got the sending unit installed in my Super Beetle cutaway tank. This is an OEM tank. And first thing I'm going to point out here is that the short arm float should be all the way to the bottom because we're empty, and it should be under control of the long arm. The long arm usually controls the fuel level on the gauge up to about a half a tank, but as you can notice here, I have to raise and lower the long arm a lot before it actually starts moving the short arm. So there's no fuel that's going to move the short arm float. And so we're empty, and the gauge does show empty, so the resistance is pretty close, so we get an empty reading. Okay, I've installed a shim here to give an R reading on the gauge. And at this point, it should have moved the long arm off, the short arm off of empty. And it just might have just a little bit, but as you can see, the gauge has not moved negligibly. Okay, so I'll be pausing here. Now I have the arm sitting on the quarter of a tank shims. These shims levels are derived from OEM senders and resistance measurements and gauge readings. So they're accurate to the tank. So as you can see, the quarter on the short arm is sitting there, and we should be reading a quarter of a tank, and we are not. And as you can see, if I were to remove this shim, the short arm is not moving very much. Okay. Now I have the half tank shims in place, and as you can see, and the gauge is reading about an R. And one of the things that is kind of important, normally what I've seen is the short arm will still be under control of the long arm at the half tank level, or just right at that edge. And as you can see, it's not even, the long arm is not up there where it should be at all to be influencing the short arm. Next is that the long arm is all the way up here on the baffle, and so it can't go any higher. It's over. Normally, at the half tank level, the short arm is under its own control as it goes on up to full tank, and so that's kind of okay. Only thing that goes on there is that we want the short arm float to give us a half a tank. And for it to do that, we'd have to raise it way up here. I'll pause for a second. Okay, I'm holding the short arm up where the gauge will give me a half a tank reading. So you can see how much further up the long arm would have to be to raise it up, but that's not going to do anything for you because it's all out of, it's just out. It just won't work. All right, I've got the shim in there to make a full tank, and the short arm float is all the way to the top of the tank. So that should give us a full tank reading, and surprisingly, it does. So just for a conclusion is that when you get down to about 3/4 to a half a tank of fuel, you're going to be reading empty. It's unfortunate. JP Groups has produced a product like this, and a lot of people have already purchased one and using it, and of course they're not getting good readings at all. So there's one other cinder I haven't tested, and that's one that they say is made in Mexico, but I'm not going to spend any time on that one for now. I've got the empty one that's calibrated with a little bending of the arms that works very well. So I'm going to conclude this, and hopefully we'll get the attention of JP Groups on this, but we'll see. Thanks for watching.